Welcome back in, guys, to the One Shining podcast. Your host here, Matt Childress, Will Wigington, once again. We apologize that it took us a little bit to get back to you all from the last show that we did. Life just kind of be life, and sometimes, especially when you're as busy as Will and I both are. But we figured this was if anything, the best time to get back into this. March Madness is now in full swing as we come to you here on March 10th, 5:08 p.m. 2026. It is 5:08, correct? Yes.
Yep.
My computer is for some reason at 4:08. I don't know what happened when I upgraded to Windows 11. It locked me to Central Time. I live in Jefferson County in Louisville, Kentucky, so I'm not on Central Time. So I don't know why that is. If I try to manually change it, I've tried to go on like Spotify and other websites. Certain websites really block you from using their website if you're not on the correct time zone because I think you're at like a VPN.
Interesting.
So I'm just locked on Central Time forever, forever. But other than that,
That's
like
brutal.
I said, 5:09 p.m. here in Louisville, Kentucky. We are here. It's been a rough season for I think a lot of the top 25 out there since the turn of the new year, especially in February. I feel like February was just an onslaught for teams of the top 25 and the top 10 in general. We saw Michigan lose a big game to Duke. We saw Arizona go on a pretty heated losing streak without Koa Pete. We saw Houston go on a pretty big losing streak as well. And then we don't even know what is going on with Kansas basketball. Once again, I mean, it seems like there's a new chapter in that story every single week in, week out, whether it's Darren Peterson, whether it's them getting absolutely BTA'd by Cincinnati at home. Who knows what's going on over there? But we're here to bring it to you. This is the best time of the year, at least for us. I hope it's the best time of the year for you guys. Let's go ahead and get started. We're going to do this, get it started the same way we've done the other shows. And Will, I want you to go ahead and tell me how your projections for the Final Four this year are doing so far.
It's a little up and down. More down than it is up, if we're being honest. So, just a quick refresher on my Final Four teams. I have UConn, Michigan, Gonzaga, and Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt being my shot in the dark Final Four team. So, starting off with the team that I think has the best chance is Michigan. They've been, going business as usual. They did lose LJ Kaysen, who is their sixth man, and honestly one of the most underrated players in college basketball this season. He's a great point guard, and he's a great shooter. Elliot Cadeau, who's improved a lot offensively since last season, has a lot more of load to bear for the rest of the season, and he's known for coming up short against great competition. So we'll see how that fares in the tournament. Thankfully for Michigan, though, they are not going to be dependent on guards to win them games in the tournament necessarily. Their roster is so deep, they have so many good wings and bigs that they can compensate for, at times, subpar guard play. But Elliot Cadeau is still good enough as a floor general to get them where they need to be. So lately, Michigan, they beat Illinois handily on the road. That's when they lost LJ Kaysen to a torn ACL. Then they beat Iowa on the road by 3, which is actually a pretty good game. Iowa's still probably looking at like a 9-10 seed range. And then also they just beat Michigan State on senior night by 10 the other day. And now they're getting prepped for the Big Ten tournament. I would assume most people would pick them to win the Big Ten. There are several teams in the Big Ten that can give them a challenge and beat them because that's just how basketball works. But I would say that Michigan is the odds-on favorite to win that and be the second overall seed in the tournament. Then next up is UConn, who for the past month and a half or so has been extremely up and down in Big East play. It seems they just play to the level of their competition, if we're being honest. I mean, they've had so many close games against teams like Georgetown, Seton Hall. I think they had a close one against Butler. They lost to Creighton at home. They lost at Marquette the other day. So they have been extremely inconsistent, and they blasted St. John's after losing to them by 14 in the Garden. You just don't really know what you're going to get from them. But they still have an extremely talented roster. They still have Dan Hurley, who's the best play caller in college basketball, in my opinion. And they have the requisite talent to make a run in March. Does that mean that they're a shoo-in for the Final Four? Absolutely not. I think they're going to be matchup dependent, and they're going to need to have guys like Terrace Reed, Alex Caravan, Silas Demery, Solo Ball step up and be the leaders that they didn't have last season. So UConn is a bit up and down, but I think they're still in good shape to win the Big East tournament. Now going on to Gonzaga, they've actually started their conference tournament play in the West Coast Conference. They actually have the West Coast Conference Championship tonight against Santa Clara, who played a great game against St. Mary's last night. I don't know if you watched that, Matt. It was a really late game, but it was a really good one. And Santa Clara, they're fighting for their tournament lives right now. They're teetering on the edge of being an at-large bid. But they're going to play with more motivation than Gonzaga tonight. Gonzaga's probably looking at it like a 3 to 4 seed. Santa Clara is thinking in their minds, we have to win this game to ensure that we're going to make the tournament. So looking forward to that one. St. Mary's did beat Gonzaga at the end of the regular season by double digits, but in the first game of the West Coast Conference tournament, Gonzaga kind of just handled Oregon State. I mean, it was a sleepy game for the most part, but they're kind of just moving along through conference play as they do typically. I think they just tied the record for the most conference championship appearances in NCAA history this year. I think it's 29 West Coast Conference championship appearances in a row, which, even though it's not a very good conference, is still a pretty impressive accomplishment, in my opinion. So yeah, we'll see how Gonzaga looks tonight. I think Santa Clara, if they shoot well, can take care of and can actually knock them off, but Gonzaga's just better than they are, so I would expect them to win and probably end up with the 3 seed. Then last is Vandy, who is the epitome of inconsistency. Last time we had the pod, they were on a downswing, and since then, it's kind of been the same. We'll just go over their last few games. They lost by 1 at Missouri, then they lost at home to Tennessee, then they beat Georgia at home, then they lost by double digits at Kentucky, then they beat Ole Miss on the road in overtime, then they just won at Tennessee to end the regular season. So they are very polarizing, and it's just, you don't know who you're going to get day in and day out. They're the 4 seed in the SEC tournament, so they're in good shape to make a run. They don't play until Friday, I don't think. So we'll see how they fare this weekend, but they're probably in line for somewhere in the 4 to 6 seed range, but I would say likeliest to get a 5 seed. So yeah, not looking too great for my Final Four picks, but still, we had the tournament to go, and all of them are probably going to be top 5 seeds, so we'll just see.
I mean, yeah, I still like all those picks. Obviously, a couple of them have made a turn for the worse towards the end of the season. Vanderbilt being the one. I fully agree with you. This is one where, like you said, the last time we were on this pod, we were glazing this basketball team for about 30. I think our pod went over an hour, and 30 minutes of that was just like Vanderbilt Commodores just glazing. That's all it was.
It was like a 2 seed potentially.
Yeah, I was fully excited about what Mark Byington was doing for that team and what they were looking forward. And I mean, my gosh, they're just so heavily reliant on crazy fast paced play. Tyler Tanner just looking like the best freshman, or sorry, not freshman, but the best point guard in America, and then also just forcing incredible amounts of turnovers. Like that is, if they're not forcing you to turn the ball over 12, 13 times, they're just it's a shootout with a Vanderbilt team that's not known for incredible shoot. They shoot the ball well, but they're not one that you'd want to, go against a high volume offense against that, can possibly go basket for basket. They're relying on turning you the ball over, and they haven't done that as much as well. I feel like Kentucky was the last game where they seriously took advantage of somebody, and then Kentucky took advantage of them back in the Rupp Arena.
Yeah. I mean,
which was.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say that one was, I don't know, something about that one just felt icky to me. Like I actually predicted Kentucky to win that game because I just felt like they weren't going to let that happen to them again. Vanderbilt. I mean, you said it. They have a team that's built like they can win games in March, and it wouldn't if they still made a Final Four, it still would not surprise me. Mark Byington is a genius on offense. He has that team primed to play defense against really good basketball teams, but they could also flop out in the second round, and I'd be like, well, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know how to describe them. They are, like you said, you were exactly right about that. They need Tyler Nickel to hit a lot of threes. They're just very, I'm not going to say they're matchup dependent, but I think they are style dependent, sort of like you alluded to. And I think they're a team that if they want to make the Final Four, they're going to need a top seed upset in their region, whether that's a 1 or a 2, and just have a slight amount of chaos, and they can take advantage of that because they can eat on lower seeds or mid-major Cinderellas and whatnot. But if they're having to play top 2 seeds that can really take away what they want to do, they don't have a good enough counter to match up and play 40 full minutes against teams like Duke or Michigan, for example, or even Arizona. So, yeah, that is why they're my shot in the dark, but I would be honestly happy to see them make a Final Four run because I love Mark Byington. I love watching them play, and I think Vandy's just on the rise in athletics in general. So we'll see. They're either going to snuff out real quick or they could do some pretty real damage in the tournament.
We will see. It's been a team that you and I have both been excited to watch this season. I'll be excited to watch them in March. My Final Four, it's pretty similar to yours. We've talked about it before. We have 2 of the same 4. Those are Michigan and UConn. Michigan, this is one where this team, their worst loss is Wisconsin But Wisconsin at the end of the day has two of the best wins in college basketball this season, but they also have some of the worst losses. That's a team I can't get like. They could be a 9 seed. I'm like, yep, makes sense. They could be a 5 seed. I'd be like, yep, that makes sense. It's one where I can't gauge that team at all. I can't really gauge the Big Ten in general. I feel like it's become towards the end of the season, it's really just been Michigan and then the other teams. I think Iowa State is a really great team. I think that they can do get some stuff done. Or sorry, not Iowa State, Illinois. Illinois is what I'm thinking of. Illinois. I think they're a good team. I had them beating Michigan later in this year. That obviously didn't happen, but I think that they're still pretty good. But Michigan, I think is. I mean, they're still number 2 in the net rankings. They got passed up by Duke after their head-to-head battle, which I mean was just a slugfest.
Great game.
That was Washington D.C. Correct? I think.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, that was. I mean, it was one where when you're watching two national title contending teams, it's not going to be some crazy shootout. It's going to be something extremely muddy, extremely ugly, extremely physical. It's exactly what we got. It came down to the wire, and I mean, since then, I mean, Duke has kind of been the team to beat since then. So, and I still think Michigan, in my opinion, I still think Michigan's the best team in the country overall. I think Duke is easily the best defensive team in the country, and that's what you have to stop them. You have to basically speed them up. But I think Michigan is still, in my opinion, like I said, I think they're still the best team in the country. My next one is Arizona. This is a team that I looked almost unbeatable with the brand of basketball they play. It's extremely balanced, it's extremely physical. As soon as they lost Koa Pete, like I said early in the show, that they just, I mean, they still had fight. They're still a great team without Koa Pete. I was actually surprised to see how important he is to this roster because he's great. We all know that he's great. He kind of had his coming onto the scene moment in their first game against UConn earlier in the season, like the first game of the season, where I think he scored like 27 points, something like that. And I was like, oh, Koa Pete. We really saw how big this freshman class is during that game. So it was surprising to see how disheveled this team looked on a big run, against teams like Texas Tech. And when Koa Pete wasn't in the lineup, I thought beforehand this team was balanced enough without him that they'd be able to pull some of these wins off. But that was also at the time that Texas Tech was just going on an absolute tear, and they looked like they could beat anybody in the country until unfortunately Jacob Toppin, he's gone for the year. So I think Texas Tech is still a good team. Definitely not Final Four good like they were before, but I have Arizona in my Final Four. I think that Koa Pete being healthy, the team being back together, I think that this team is incredibly well coached. I think that they are extremely balanced, and I think that they're capable of stretching the floor when they need to. But at the end of the day, they'll pound you inside. They'll beat you in the paint. They will beat you at your own game. They'll play at any pace they want to play at. They'll do whatever they can to win, and they're one of the best teams in the country at doing it. One of the ones that you also mentioned, like I said, UConn. This one, I'm feeling less and less confident about University of Connecticut and Dan Hurley as we go on. Dan Hurley, like you said, I mean, he's arguably the best coach in college basketball right now. I agree with you. He's probably the best play caller in college basketball right now. You can hate the man if you want. You can call him a clown if you want. I'm one of those people that does.
Douchebag, but he can
very great egg. Did you see what Fox did the other day where they put him and his brother on the broadcast at the same time when they were both getting technical fouls?
No, that's actually hilarious though.
So UConn and Arizona State were playing at the exact same time. It was the game that who were they playing? He got ejected against.
Was it Marquette just the other day when they lost?
Yes. I just couldn't remember. It was Marquette, yes. It was the very end of the game. He was getting ejected, and they threw up on the broadcast. One side of the screen was Dan Hurley screaming at the ref. The other side of the screen was Bobby Hurley screaming at the ref. And I thought it was so funny. It was
peak television right there.
That is peak television. But this is a team where at one point in the season, I thought they were the most dominant team in college basketball. They just looked like no matter what the matchup was, they had a set for it. They had a rotation for it. They could meet you at the rim. They could stretch the floor with you. It was one where I was like, dude, I can't see a roster like this and a coach like Dan Hurley losing any basketball games. Like I just can't see it happening. As honestly, since the start of Big East play, it's just kind of been rough sledding for the UConn Huskies. They have played a lot of really, really bad teams super close. They've had some good wins that, you can't take it. But, I mean, Georgetown by 4. They beat Butler by 10. Butler is terrible. They lost to Creighton at the end of the season. Scraped away. That's a quad three loss, scraped away. I mean, scraped away a win against Seton Hall with against a good Seton Hall team. I'm Shaheen Holloway is doing a great job with those guys over there. I think that he'll get a really good Power Four job here soon, but it's just one that looking down the stretch, UConn is not playing their best basketball right now. Like we mentioned, the Marquette game just last week, you lose to Marquette. That's a bad Marquette team. That's one that I mean,
Horrible. I mean, but they have 11 wins or something like that. I think.
I think you're right. They have 12 wins. They're 12 and 19, which I mean, Shaka Smart. You know
he's gonna get
what
another year. But
dude, you got to use the portal, man. Like
basketball.
You literally, I don't know why he's so against either. It actually does. It doesn't. Dabo, I understand he's the whole like traditional college football should be this way, but he still uses the portal. You know, like he has the whole
modestly, yeah.
Yeah, he has the whole tampering issue with Ole Miss going on, whatever. But yeah, Shaka Smart. I mean, good win for the guy that probably just saved his job for one season. But at the end of the day, it's not looking good for the man. But my last one, and this is my dark horse flop of the year, and that's Alabama.
It's not a flop. It's not a flop.
Gosh, man, this team, there's genuinely not a team I feel worse about going into the tournament than Alabama, in my opinion. I just, they looked better when they got Bediako back, but that was nothing that you should ever bank on because I felt like we all in the realm of college basketball knew that was not going to end well. We knew that eventually he was going to be deemed ineligible and it wasn't going to be worth it. He improved their defense drastically. Like he was one of those guys like a Chucky Hepburn last year who just played so incredibly well defensively. It kind of got the guys around him to buy in and made their jobs a lot easier. But without him, they're still second in the SEC or third in the SEC. I forgot. I don't have it in front of me right now, but
I do. I can pull it
up. They're third or fourth. I don't remember.
They are actually the 2 seed in the SEC.
Okay, that's what I thought. I thought they
like a 4 in the actual tournament.
Yeah, they have the capability and the talent and the offense under Nate Oates to beat any team in the country. Like we're both Louisville fans. The one thing about Pat Kelsey's offense and how exciting it is it puts you in the situation to beat anyone, right? You could there's any out of any night you can go out there and light it up on somebody. You could probably beat some teams you're probably not supposed to beat going into the game just because you have a really good shooting night, your offense is flowing really well. Nate Oates does that to a T almost every single season with these Alabama teams. It's one of those where there's no questions of is the roster going to be able to play at the pace he wants? Are they going to be able to make enough threes? They're going to be able to. This is a team that Nate Oates has been doing this long enough at the Power 4 level. He knows how it works. He knows how to make it work with any roster in the country. And this team can get hot against anybody. But I feel like they're kind of subject to a similar thing that Vanderbilt is. And I feel like it's kind of been most of the SEC outside of Florida that it's just inconsistency. I mean, besides Florida, and if you really want to count Florida because of how bad they were at the beginning of the season, well, not bad, but how rough they looked to be in the season, consistency across the SEC has been a big issue. I mean,
the conference as a whole has fallen off a cliff from last year. I mean, that's not to say they're not going to get, 8 or 9 plus teams in the tournament, but still, it's just the quality. Like when you have Alabama as your 2 seed, and they have over 10 losses, that kind of talks right into your point. Like Vandy's inconsistent; they're the 4 seed. Arkansas is the 3. They've been really inconsistent all year. So it is. I mean, they're probably going to get 9 or 10 teams, and I think the cutoff line is probably Texas. So, yeah, I mean, they're they're similar to the ACC in the sense that they have one really good team at the top. They have a few middle, like top 4 to 6 seeds, and then the middle of the pack is super inconsistent and is going to be probably a 7 or lower in the tournament. Mm-hmm. So, it's very odd, especially when you look last year. You had 3 1 seeds as SEC teams. Is that what it was?
It's something ridiculous. Because they had 16 of the 18 teams in the 14 of the teams in the tournament.
They had 15, I think.
Yeah.
I think actually it might have been 16. They were missing LSU and South Carolina, and then there may have been another team that was out. Mississippi State made it. Yeah, so whatever. But basically their entire conference made it last season.
And it's crazy that the change that's gone on since the start of February is we don't have neither of us have Florida on this list, and they look like the best team in college basketball currently at this moment. I mean, when they finally got the backcourt in Xavier Lee and Boogie Fland doing it's almost like the reverse of Louisville basketball, where like your backcourt is so good, you just need the front court to be serviceable. Florida's front court is so incredibly talented and so incredibly skilled and disciplined. You just need Xavier Lee and Boogie Fland to not screw up. That's basically it. Like
Make
hit
some
a couple
threes, yeah.
make a couple threes. Like you don't two or three a game, and you're blasting everybody. Like when they went on a streak of what two in a row, 100+ point games, they blasted. They won by like 60 combined points in back to back games against SEC play. I mean, it's crazy to think of how much college basketball and the landscape of the sport has changed in just a month. But those are our four. Both have one we're not too hot on, but the other three, they're still there.
And I will say, this might be a hot take right now, but I think Florida's getting a little overhyped right now.
You think so?
I'm gonna say that.
There is a part of me that feels that Boogie Flan and Xavier Lee are not going to be able to keep it up long enough. Like
Well,
it's some point it's going to bottom out.
it's just you think about how much luck Florida needed last year to win the tournament, and that was having Walter Clayton hit crazy shots. You had Elijah Martin, who was a great shooting guard, and then Will Richard was also a really good three man. And then you had the top four big men in college basketball, essentially. So, I mean, they did get like they should have lost to UConn in the second
Yeah.
round. The Sweet 16, I mean, that really wasn't much. I actually can't remember who they played in the Sweet 16, but I know in the Elite Eight they were dead to rights against Texas Tech. They should have lost that game. They were down by 10 with like 3 minutes left until Walter Clayton and Thomas Houck just went nuclear. And then in the Final Four, Auburn had a lead on them. They choked. Houston was up the entire game on Florida. They choked. So Florida earned that title. I'm not trying to say take any credit
Yeah.
away from them. All I'm saying is that Boogie Fland and Xavier Lee aren't good enough or aren't on the level of the guards they had last year to when they are in a sticky situation, they need shot creators, they're not good enough to make that happen. So
No, I fully agree with that.
so we'll see what happens. I mean, they are going to be. I do think they're a shoe in for the second weekend. I will say that. But beyond
Let me let me ask you this question then, because I was thinking about it the other day, and I think I asked it to Roman himself a couple of days ago. This year in college football, every single year the SEC is supposed to be the dominant power conference of football and this and that, and you get 10 SEC teams in the top 25 starting the season. And last season, we already talked about like 14 or 15 teams of the 16 or 18 that are in the SEC make the NCAA tournament. It's a historic year for college basketball in the SEC. It's by far the most dominant conference. It's not even close. And they showed up in the tournament as well. They ended up being one of the most winningest conferences in the tournament, 3-1 seeds, like you said, 2-3-1 seeds. This year, with like what we mentioned, the inconsistencies the conference has had, do you think a little bit of that SEC football prowess is coming out where they're just kind of beating up on each other? So you're not getting a good grasp on, is this SEC conference really this good this season? Because here in football, when we got to the postseason, you started to see, wow, a lot of these teams, Alabama, Texas A&M, like all these teams just ended up, Auburn, one of them, just ended up not being anywhere near what they were advertised of the season. You had guys like Paul Feinbaum going on TV basically saying, I have to leave the country because I was wrong about the SEC. Do you think there's a little bit of that in college basketball this season?
without a doubt. I mean, and I knew where you were going with that question because the prime example is Auburn. There's no fucking way they should even be
No.
sniffing the tournament. And
Joe Lenardi had him in yesterday.
Yeah.
He had him in the tournament, in the field.
after losing, and people say, "Oh, well, they beat Florida on the road." Here's their quad one wins. So they did beat St. John's on neutral, good win. They beat Arkansas at home by 22, great win. Won at Florida, beat Kentucky at home, but they're 4-12 in quad one games. It's not like they're incredible. People are saying, "Well, they have all these good wins. They have 4 quad one wins. It's not like they're 7-10 in quad one, and they just happen to be 17-15. They actually are 16-15 overall, have 2 quad 2 losses, and have a quad 3 home loss against LSU, and they're fucking 7-11 in SEC.
They're one game above 500.
There's no way they should even be sniffing the tournament. The only other team that is like kind of has a similar makeup record wise that actually I think should have a shot but is properly rated on the bubble is Cincinnati. Cincinnati has several really top tier quad 1A wins, beating top 3 seeds.
This guy knows ball.
They have they
This
have
guy knows ball.
they have 14 losses, but they're still on the outside looking in. Why is that? They have better wins than Auburn does, top to bottom, and they have less losses. And they didn't go 4 games below 500 in conference play, in the best conference. The Big 12 is by far the best conference this season, in my opinion.
It's just one of those where, because like Stephen Pearl came out in the interview the other day and did the whole spiel of we could put our resume against anybody's.
No,
You got 15 losses.
You can't.
You literally cannot.
You
Like,
almost lost to fucking Bethune Cookman at home. Like,
are we? Are we just like if we're talking about in modern college basketball, right? The whole selection community. It's not. Remember back when it was off of it was it RPI or was it BPI? It was RPI.
It was RPI. Yeah.
That was a complete mess because it didn't take into consideration like where that team stands at the moment, what the win loss total was, all these things that we have all these different metrics for now, like wins against wins above bubble, and all these things. The net rings we didn't have that stuff. It was UConn is 12th in the country, Louisville or UK or whoever you are 11th. That's a top 15 win. There you go. Boom. That's on your resume. And that's it for the rest of the season. And you kept it throughout the whole That was such a flawed system. But this is one where when you were going back then, when you were looking at RPI was basically a fancy way that we're just putting teams in here based off vibes.
Yeah.
Like, this is just how I feel. Like, this team is that big of a brand name. We kind of have to put them in. This has to happen. Stephen Pearl, okay, man. Like, one, I get that you're the nepo baby of college basketball, and I understand, but dude, if we're gonna sit here and say that your resume stacks up against anybody in the country, well, okay, what about the 15 losses we're talking about? Like, we can't just talk. You can't just sit here and then dangle in our face a win over Florida away, because you're right. It is one of the. I get it. I understand.
It's a top 5 win this season, but that doesn't
Yes.
matter.
But you mentioned Cincinnati. This is one that I had a conversation with somebody just the other day of, okay, I mean, we're having talks about Auburn. Cincinnati has wins just as good as Auburn does, and I don't hear anybody making conversation of Cincinnati should be in. And these aren't just like we're predicting Auburn to win the SEC championship and they get the automatic bid. These people are full on bids into the tournament. Like, they're not even have to play in. They're just going to make it. And
No, it's
tough.
And I will say this now: Auburn's not going to make the tournament unless they do major damage in the SEC tournament. Joe Lunardi's
you don't think a UNC kind of situation is going to happen with them?
No, Joe Lunardi's a fucking moron, and I think he's carrying water for the SEC because that's what ESPN does nowadays. I don't think with how many bubble teams there are and how badly they're performing, Auburn included, I still don't think any of them have a worse resume than Auburn does. I mean, I got SMU on right now. They're up by 3 against Syracuse. If they win this game, I think they're in, regardless of whether they lose to Louisville or not. Auburn, they need to get like 3 wins plus to make the tournament, in my opinion. And for them to even be on the cut line is just absurd. So, yeah, that pisses me off. And speaking of, I think that's a perfect segue into talking about the conference championships. Conference tournaments, I should say. And we can talk about the SEC first. I mean, if we're on the subject of Auburn, they play tomorrow against Mississippi State. So they'd have to win that. They would play Tennessee, then Vandy, and then most likely Florida before they make the conference championship game. If they beat Mississippi State, that doesn't make any difference. But if they beat Tennessee and then Vandy, I think that would put them in the tournament at that point. Because a Florida loss, I mean, that's not going to damage your resume, but you get 2 extra quad 1 wins, and at that point you're, 18 and 16? Still fucking absurd to even put them in the conversation. But with where they're slated right now, they might make it. I don't think but they might.
So, like, I took a look at the SEC tournament bracket yesterday during one of the radio shows, but I didn't like it was mostly because it was during a Kentucky show. So I was just like going over there. I didn't really pay attention to the fact that Auburn's route to the SEC championship is not bad.
Relatively speaking, yeah, it could be a lot.
Like, it could be a 12 seed, right? Like, so you play, like you say, you play Mississippi State game 1, which that tipped off a little bit ago, or it tips off tomorrow, Wednesday.
Yeah, it's
and then you go, and if you win that game, you play Tennessee. Tennessee has shown that they're beatable by almost anybody in the country. Yep. And then, if you win that game, you play against Will Wiggins' favorite team in the country, a team that has shown they can lose to anybody in the country. And the thing is this Auburn team has talent on it.
It does.
I mean, you have 2 of the better guards in the country. It's one where you just feel like I can't tell what the issue is. I can't tell if this team just they're almost like a Kentucky, where like they look fully bought in certain games. They look like they just don't want to play basketball in other games. You know what I mean? And then that also is mixed with Stephen Pearl just has no fucking clue what he's doing
Yeah,
out
I was
there.
gonna say, I mean, it really comes down to having a used car salesman as a head coach. I think that's what the issue is. They have talent. I mean, obviously it's a huge drop off from last year's talent, but they do have NCAA tournament level talent. That's why they were ranked, to coming
Yeah.
into the season. So even with Bruce Pearl retiring, so I guess moving away from Auburn, do you have a team in the? Okay, I'll ask you this: who is your pick to win the SEC tournament, and then who do you think is a dark horse when you look at this bracket? If you have it up on your screen,
Ooh, that's a good question.
I can go first since I have mine up. If you need to look
I,
at it.
I got it up. My pick. I mean, I can't go against Florida in this situation. I just can't. They're playing too well at this particular moment for me to say that an Oklahoma or an Alabama could knock them off. But if I so Florida's going to be my pick to win this. My dark horse, though, I don't know if you could really call it a dark horse because they've played really well this season, and it's going to be Arkansas.
Okay.
I think that John Calipari and Darius Acuff. I feel like Darius Acuff has enough talent that he can go out there and beat a team like Georgia himself. He has thrived against teams that have incredible front courts. He thrives at getting to the rim. He can spread the floor. This dude can score at elite levels at all three levels of the floor. I'm on the side that this is the best guard John Calipari's had. I mean, I'm gonna go ahead and stand on that fact. I think he is in terms of finished product. Like when he gets to the NBA, he doesn't need to be like extremely developed. Like
Yeah.
Shea is. If we're looking past like now, Shea in terms of career is the best guard he's ever had. I mean, NFL, NBA MVP, NBA champion. But he took a lot of development down the road. Darius Acuff could start for almost any program, any organization in the NBA if he were to go tomorrow. So yeah, my dark horse, I'm taking Arkansas, which I think that they would have a pretty if they won their game against whoever, whether it's Oklahoma, South Carolina, Texas A&M. I mean, gosh, that's three really bad teams they would have to play. That's almost then they have to play Alabama after that. It would be disappointing if Florida and Arkansas didn't go at it in the championship, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that because I think if Alabama played Florida again, especially without Bediako, it would be a fucking massacre. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I agree with you that I think Florida is the odds-on favorite easily. I mean, they're my pick to win it. I don't think that there's any team in the SEC that if they played Florida 10 times out of 10 that they would win more than 3, honestly. So, I got Florida winning. My dark horse though, I'm going to say Georgia. And the reason why
Okay.
is because I don't think Texas or especially Ole Miss, but Texas is not that good. They're extremely inconsistent. Georgia hit a lull in the middle of the season. They were actually ranked for a long time and then had a losing streak, and they were down on the dumps until really beating Kentucky kind of put them back on their feet. And then they just beat Alabama at home the other day. So I think that if they can get past most likely Texas, that they're going to give Alabama a great shot. If they can get past Alabama, I honestly like them with just how good they are offensively and the pace of play that tends to happen in the SEC tournament. That teams just like to run and gun, and that is the epitome of Georgia basketball right now under Mike White. So, yeah, I mean they would have to win an extra game than Arkansas would, like your dark horse. But I really like Georgia's positioning in the bracket. Now I say that, and they might just lose to Texas, but dark
Yeah.
horse is it's a dark horse. It's an underdog, so we'll see. But yeah, Florida, I would be very surprised if they don't win the tournament.
I like that one because I agree with you that. So when I was on the radio shows before that Georgia Kentucky game, the whole thing was like, "There's no way Kentucky should lose this game. This would be embarrassing." And I'm sitting here talking to people. I'm like, guys, I don't. This I think you guys forget that Georgia was one of the best offenses in the country for about a whole month and a half. Like they were, like you said, they were fully ranked. This team was averaging over 90 points a game for a good stretch there, and then they hit. I mean, they you. I'm not gonna lie, you kind of undersell it. They hit probably the biggest low in college basketball for a while. This team went from one that shot in a billion gajillion threes and scored almost 100 points a game to now they average like making like 5 or 6 a game. Like they just can't hit the broadside of a barn. And then they play Kentucky and they light it up and they win that game. I like that one. I agree with you. That's definitely a team kind of like in Alabama that can get hot at really any moment, and then once you're hot, especially if you're a shooting team.
Yep. So they're extremely boomer bust. I guess We can go maybe in the order of like the power of the power conferences. No pun
Okay.
intended. So I guess we can go ACC next. I would say they're probably the third best conference in college basketball this year, behind the Big 12 and Big 10. So this one actually has the opportunity to be an absolute crapshoot because Caleb Foster has a fractured foot for Duke, and now he's out for the foreseeable future, likely until at least the Final Four, from what people are saying, and just the average timeline of a fractured foot recovery. And then Patrick Ngungba, their center, is out for the ACC tournament as well. Now, that's not to say that Duke still can't win it. They still have Caden and Cam Boozer. They still have Isaiah Evans. They still have Kaminya, who is up and down, but they have the requisite talent still to still win the ACC tournament. So, looking at it, I'll ask you again if you have what is your pick to win the ACC tournament, and then who is your dark horse, and then I guess because of this wrench thrown into things with Duke, do you think there is going to be a lot of chaos in this tournament, and if so, do you have any upsets that you're looking at? I know it's a loaded question, so I'll let you
No, I think they're. I'm going to say that right now that I think the ACC is going to be on par with the SEC in terms of if we're looking at ACC, the Power Four, Big 10, Big 12, SEC, of who's going to be the most competitive conference in terms of their conference tournament. I think there's going to be a multitude of upsets and a multitude of really tough games. We've already seen Stanford go down. I mean, if we're looking on the outside in, it's not like
Oh,
this crazy upset, but Pitt is horrible. That's a bad basketball team. So going out there and beating Abuka Okoye is good for them. I'm happy they moved on. That looks better for the conference in general. But I this is one that I've been tossing back and forth over thought ever since we talked about this being the topic of conversation, and because Patrick Ngongba is such a key piece for this team in terms of when they play seriously high talent. Like they definitely do not beat Michigan without Patrick Ngongba. And I'm kind of looking at this at the point where I'm still going to pick Duke because I think that they are by far the the best coached, the most well coached team. I think they're the most talented team. I think the most dominant team by easily. We saw them play against UNC against Caleb without Caleb Wilson. That game looked really tight at halftime. At the end of the day, with Duke missing two key pieces in Caleb Foster and Patrick Ngongba, they still have longer legs than half the field they're playing against. I mean, UNC just ran out of gas and just could not put up a fight anymore. They're still, like I said, they're still incredibly well coached. They're still incredibly balanced, and it's the best defensive team in college basketball. And when you're playing in a league where it seems like a lot of the teams where the ACC historically was just like the Big East, a great defensive conference in terms of, you had Virginia, you had Duke, you had UNC, you had all these teams, and now they've all kind of transitioned into this offensive first style of basketball. And the ACC is a really high scoring league. Duke has kind of shown that's not how they want to play. They play still to that. We're going to be the toughest team in the league, and I can't pick against them at the moment. But I think that if you're going to see one team really one conference really muck it up and something surprising happen, it's going to be in the ACC because of those injuries. My dark horse, gosh, this one's tough. This is one that I didn't actually have prepared. My dark horse is going to be.
if you say
Oh my!
Louisville, you're not biased. I'm just
I'm not. I'm not. I don't see. I really don't think that's a dark horse. Just like Arkansas. I mean, I think that Louisville is by far at least the second most talented team in the conference. I think they've underachieved. But if I'm looking at a dark horse, I think that's going to be Miami. I think Miami's going to be my pick. I think that's a team that, if we're going to talk about because in my opinion, in this league, it's who can beat Duke, who could go up against Duke, which they haven't played Duke this season, so we don't know. Who could go into a team that's that physical and that defensive heavy and really put up a fight with them? And with Ernest Uday, I think that they could really put a good shot at taking down Cam Boozer. Cam Boozer has struggled against teams that have really good size and length. Miami is an incredibly physical basketball team. They try and beat you up. They try and get to the free throw line, which, Duke has been known to overhelp. They've been known to be a little too physical at times. I'm not saying it's 100% that would be my pick to win it, but if there, in my opinion, if there is a team out there that gets hot in this tournament, I think that Miami matches up against Duke better than most of the field.
Well, my predictions for the ACC tournament are fucking crazy. So
Okay.
just stay with me now, okay? And this is either going to be really right or it's going to be really, really, really wrong. So I'm just going to start off now. I think Florida State beats Duke.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
So
Okay.
Florida State, they started.
They have looked good. They have looked good recently. I'll give you that. They have looked good.
They started the season. I was thinking, I was like, you know what? They're actually not dog shit, and then they became dog shit very quickly.
Yeah.
And then conference tournament or conference play started, not conference tournament play. Regular conference play started. They almost beat Duke at home. They really should have won that game back in a couple months ago. And Duke just scraped by. People were like, it was just a crazy game where it was a road game for Duke, and they just weren't used to that type of environment. But if you look at it in conference play for Duke, they beat the shit out of teams on the road, let alone at home. But they demolished teams on the road still, outside of North Carolina. And they lost, or they almost lost to Florida State. And now they don't have Patrick Ngomba. They don't have Caleb Foster. They still have a great defensive identity. But Florida State, the past month and a half, has been surging, honestly. Now they're the 8th seed in the ACC tournament. I think they're going to knock Cal out of NCAA conference or NCAA tournament, Eligibility, thank you. So I think Cal's going to be out. I think both West Coast teams are done. So I do think Florida State's going to win. I think Florida State will beat Duke. But they're not my dark horse. I think North Carolina is going to beat Florida State. I think that.
So you think this league is just going to be an absolute cartoon fest?
Yes.
Like,
so I will say this. So Stanford lost to Pitt. Pitt moves on to play NC State tomorrow. I do think NC State will take care of business and beat Pitt. However, I do think Virginia will beat NC State in the quarters. So I'm going to say Louisville, SMU. If they win right now, they're up by 10 with 12 minutes to play. I think that's a very scary matchup for Louisville. I don't think Michael Brown is going to play in the ACC tournament, so I would say it's a coin flip. I'll just take Louisville because I think they are a better team, and I think SMU is going to make the tournament regardless if they take care of business the rest of the way against Syracuse. So I'll say, fuck it. Louisville beats SMU. Louisville beats Miami in the rematch, and Virginia presents a very interesting matchup. I know if you remember in the first matchup between Louisville and Virginia got up to, I think, a 14-4 lead on the road.
14-0 at one point.
Yeah, you're right. Actually,
I was there. I unfortunately had to be there. Because we were going to do a show after that. And we were texting each other like, I don't think I'm in the mental stability to do the show.
No, and Pat Kelsey waited way too long to call a timeout. And from there, Louisville cut into the lead. I think they got it down to 34-30 and got it down to below 6 points multiple times, but they just could not get over the hump in that game. And that's because Louisville spotted them 14 points. I don't think that Virginia is 14 points better than Louisville. I don't think they're 9 points better than them, which is what they ended up winning by. I do think that Louisville is either going to make it to the semifinals or the conference championship. But I do think North Carolina will make it to the ACC championship game. So I think the likeliest scenario is it's North Carolina versus Virginia. And I'm going to pick North Carolina to win the ACC championship game. It is weird because they don't have Caleb Wilson. However, they are still a good defensive team. They do still have Seth Trimble. They still have Henry Vasar. Jaron Stevenson's playing well. They have the roster makeup. They do still have a fucking moron at head coach. But I think that their path sets them up to make it to the ACC title game. And I think they're a better team than Virginia. And I think they'll win. So, like I said, this is either going to be extremely correct or it's going to be the worst fucking bracket you've ever seen. So
God,
we'll see.
You just pissed me off so bad. I would actually, if I had to watch North Carolina win the ACC in this season, knowing like this would just be the bitter Louisville fan in me, knowing that Duke goes down to Florida State, and you're like, oh my God, we're looking at the rest of the field. who are we gonna this is like this is a great opportunity for you to capitalize, and I have to watch North Carolina win the conference in this year without Caleb Wilson, with an absolute idiot of Hubert Davis at the helm.
Well, Louisville's path is tough. They are my dark horse. I actually do consider them to be a dark horse because I don't think they're going to have Michael Brown. But if Louisville wins the ACC tournament, that means, especially if SMU wins here, they're going to have 4 quad one wins. So
Yeah.
if they win the ACC tournament, they'll probably be a 4 seed because they will play SMU, then Miami, then most likely Virginia, and even if NC State makes it, that's still a quad one win. And then whoever they play on the other side will be a quad one win as well. So yeah, I think Louisville has a much tougher path than teams like North Carolina, Duke, or any of the others, even Clemson on that side of the bracket do, because we're just in the middle of a lot of really good teams, relatively speaking, in the conference. So I do think that Louisville has the capability to win the ACC tournament, but I just don't see it. Like I said, I think they either lose in the conference championship or the semifinals, but I do think they'll win 2 games. But I just think North Carolina has such a better setup. And even without Caleb Wilson, they have enough of an identity left over to win it. But if Duke beats Florida State, I actually still think North Carolina is going to beat Duke. It's hot take. Still, all of these are hot takes.
I hate it, but I don't hate it. Like, if that makes any sense, I'd love to see it, but it doesn't mean I don't hate it.
Yeah, we'll see. So, yeah, moving on. We'll go Big Ten tournament.
Okay, we can do Big Ten.
Let's see. I guess I'll go first this time. Like we talked about a minute ago, or a bit ago, I do think Michigan is still going to win. They're my pick to to win the conference championship. But the Big Ten is very front loaded, and then they have some decent teams in the middle of the pack. So teams like Iowa is the 9 seed, Ohio State is an 8. They're honestly just going to get wiped out by Michigan. So those are 2 dark horses that I think have 0 shot to win the Big Ten championship. Nebraska, they've been, since they started 20-0, they're just kind of middle of the pack. I think they went 6-5 to finish the season. Purdue is free falling. I don't know how they're still projected as a 3 seed, but here we are. UCLA, though, is absolutely on fire as of late. And they're looking at from being right on the cusp of the cut line to probably an 8 seed right now. And they play Michigan State if they beat Rutgers and Minnesota, which I think they should take care of business. But Michigan State just the other week beat the fucking shit out of UCLA. And that's when Mick Cronin actually kicked his own player off the court. And one of the most hilarious things I've ever seen. With that said, I don't think UCLA is going to win the conference championship. I'm just saying look out for them maybe to make a little bit of noise. I think Michigan, I would be very surprised if they don't win it. I will say, though, that my dark horse, and it's probably the same as yours, is Wisconsin. I do like what they bring to the table. I think that they will take care of business against either Washington or USC. I think they can beat Illinois. Illinois has been teetering a little bit. They're still a great offensive team, but they're now inconsistent, and that's just the MO of Brad Underwood. I actually don't like Greg Gard as a coach, to be honest, but that doesn't matter right now. I think his identity against Brad Underwood's is better. So I will say that Wisconsin is going to match up with Michigan in that semifinal, and maybe they can make a little bit of magic happen again. So I don't think any team on the bottom half of the Big Ten bracket will win the conference championship. It's either going to be Michigan or it's going to be Wisconsin.
I don't hate that one. You were half right about what your presumption with me was.
Okay.
Wisconsin is not my dark horse.
Okay.
Wisconsin's actually my pick to win this conference.
Okay, holy.
It's actually my pick to win this conference.
All right.
So you were half right. I kind of teased it earlier when we were talking. I love this Wisconsin team. I feel like this is one where they have the ability to play themselves into serious contention in this tournament, and this is one where like they're going to play in the tournament, right? It's something they don't have to really extremely worry about. They have a great resume so far. Like, so they have some rough losses, but they play in a similar situation to, like I'll bring another Louisville example up that you like in this tournament, you have the ability to bolster yourself and put yourself basically in the front of national media going in, tournament play. And this is a team that's shown they can beat the best teams in the country. They've literally already done it, so it's one where a 5 seed, it's obviously just based on win loss in your conference, and I completely understand that, but It's one that they play extremely balanced. They obviously these are all going to be neutral site games, but I mean you've seen what the energy feels like when Wisconsin's playing at home against some of the best teams in the country. This is a team that historically travels pretty well, and they play a good brand of basketball, and they're a really team based brand of basketball, and they can get it done. I like this team. They're exciting. It's who I'm going to be rooting for in the Big Ten. I My dark horse. Once again, I don't know if you can count it as a dark horse, but I kind of flipped them for the same reason that I flipped Wisconsin. And my dark horse in this tournament is going to be number 4 seeded Illinois.
Okay.
I'm going to try and make this make sense. Illinois is better than I think 90% of the field in the Big Ten. I'd say 95. I think they're one of the most. I think outside of Michigan, they're probably the most talented team, and I think they're the most well put together team. Now it's entirely we're just playing Euro basketball if you're playing in Illinois, University of Illinois, but they've done a great job of basically hopping on the Euro talent. And I mean, it's like if your favorite team when it was like we're going to grab one Euro guy, we pray to God he can be up to speed with American basketball. They just hit on like 9 of those guys, right? Like that's just what they got lightning in a bottle this season. They have the talent to beat anybody they want. They just haven't really done it. Like they've done it against the teams they should beat, but when they've played against that high talent, just like I said, Michigan a couple weeks ago, they have a lot of fight. They just kind of lose their legs toward the end. You're really seeing where the tier between the teams of like the Dukes, the Michigans, and then there's like Illinois right below them. So I think they have plenty of opportunity to win the Big Ten tournament. It's one of those where if they get it going at the right time and they spend a lot of time in the film room and they get prepped for whatever team they're playing, they have a good opportunity to win. But yeah, so that's going to be my dark horse. I'm taking Wisconsin.
One thing I forgot: Nolan Winter may not be available for the Big Ten tournament. That is Wisconsin's big man who had an ankle injury.
Did not know that.
Greg Gard did say he would be available for the NCAA tournament, so we'll see about his status. That would change things slightly. He's a good player, but I don't think he is the make or break for their roster, but he is a very key piece. So moving on to the last conference, we have the Big 12, which, like I said, I do think is the best conference in college basketball this season. And this bracket is also very interesting. We've already had some results today. Arizona State, well, they mostly handled Baylor. Baylor did make a bit of a run towards the end of the game, made it look pretty. 83-79, I think, is the final score. Cincinnati did end up taking care of business against Utah. And we'll have the BYU, Kansas State, and Oklahoma State, Colorado results later today. But would you like to go ahead and talk about your pick to win it and then also a dark horse?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and go first since you went first last time. My pick to win it in this league is actually going to be Iowa State. I mean, this is it. I mean, it's kind of similar to the Wisconsin. We've gotten to watch them in prime time against some of the best teams in college basketball, and these dudes just live up to the moment. And I mean, their biggest win is arguably when they played Houston at home a couple weeks ago. You really saw like Houston, who at that point in the season was almost a guaranteed 1 seed. We thought that the 1 seeds are really it was going to be Arizona, Michigan, Houston, UConn, and you could flip UConn and Duke or Houston and Duke, whatever. You thought that at least 3 of the 4 1 seeds were locked up, and then after that Iowa State game, you saw Kingston Flemings and this Houston team are beatable. They are vulnerable, which we kind of felt at the beginning of the season. They didn't look like a Houston of late, and then they really kicked it into high gear, found themselves, and then ran into a buzzsaw at Iowa State. And this is a team in the Cyclones that it's one where you kind of felt like a team like this had been brewing for years. It seemed like every single year since I was in high school, Iowa State was one of those where like, gosh, why are they seated so high? Like, and you look at their resume and it's good, but it's not great. And they always are kind of projected to go a little farther than they inevitably end up going. Right. And it seems like this had been boiling over for years and years and years. And I feel like this is finally the team they have to do something like this. And I think they win the Big 12. I think that they do it. My dark horse. I'm going to go on a limb. You made a prediction in the last one you did. I'm going to go on a limb and say we have the same dark horse team. Do you want to take a guess of who that is?
TCU.
Oh, close. I wanted UCF. I like TCU though. I do like TCU. UCF is a team like a lot of the middle of the packs in the college in the conferences around college basketball, where they've shown in the games they've played already, they have the pieces to go up against the big dogs and then handle their business against the little ones as well. Like they've had some great wins on their resume this season. They it's another where they're just extremely inconsistent. You're looking for, can this team not be streaky for 6 games in a row? Can they go out in the NCAA tournament and really put a plan together and continue it Monday through Saturday, this week into the next week? And they haven't been able to do that. But in their shining moments, they have stepped up to the plate. They're a team that can play at a super fast pace and trade baskets. They're also a team that can slow it down and beat you defensively. And it's one where couple weeks ago, before Louisville won, this game against Miami, Louisville was projected to possibly play UCF in the first round. That's a game I want to stay away from. That is a team that I feel like is a matchup nightmare for Louisville. I want to stay as far away from that team as possible because I think they're good. So that's my dark horse pick.
I agree with your overall assessment of UCF. The thing is with me, I don't know if there's going to be too much of an opportunity for a dark horse in this. So I will say, though, okay, I'll just go through it real quick. I do think Iowa State makes it at least to the semis. I do think they're going to beat Texas Tech. I think that Cincinnati, I actually am going to pick to beat UCF tomorrow. And then against Arizona, that one's going to be tough. I think I do kind of want Cincinnati to make that full turnaround and then extend Wes Miller for him just to suck going forward. But I do think that their run is going to end against Arizona. So it's going to be Arizona versus Iowa State in the semis. I think BYU is going to make it to the game against Houston, and then Houston's just going to stifle them. I really like TCU. I just don't like that they're playing Kansas. And I know Kansas has been very inconsistent, but I think now you're going to see Darren Peterson lock in a bit. I think Kansas is going to kind of right the ship slightly from their inconsistency the past couple of weeks. So I'm going to have Houston and Kansas in the semis, and I'm going to take Kansas to win. They just beat Houston a couple weeks ago, but Houston, even though they're a really good team, they have not shown the ability to beat another like tier 1 team in college basketball this season. All those matchups they pretty much just lost, and not handily, but they can't get over the hump. And I like them, and I think they'll make the second weekend of the tournament, but I think Kansas is just going to beat them again. And Arizona versus Iowa State is such an interesting matchup in the semis. And I really do want to pick Iowa State. I'm actually deciding this in real time, to be honest with you. So, Iowa State, they have Tamin Lipsey, Milan Momcilovic, they have Cam Heisey, they have Josh Jefferson. I think TJ Otzelberger is a great coach. And I don't trust Tommy Lloyd that much, but in the NCAA tournament, this is not that. I think Arizona is going to beat Iowa State, and it's going to be Arizona versus Kansas for the Big 12 championship, and I'm going to take Arizona. Now, if there is a dark horse, I'm just going to pick Cincinnati because they've been pretty hot.
Oh, you're not taking Kansas State with no.
I wish I could, man.
No Jerome Tang, they're free.
Yeah, they are.
The shackles are off.
They are off, but BYU is still probably going to hammer them, to be honest. And I do like UCF a lot. I just think Cincinnati is a good matchup, or a bad matchup for them. Their defensive identity is just going to control the game from UCF's guard play a little bit. But, yeah, we'll see. The Big 12 is going to be a very interesting tournament at the top end, I think. So I'm going to pick Arizona to win it, not very confidently. And I think your Iowa State pick is a good one, but we'll see how it shakes out. So.
I agree. I think this one is this is the best. I agree with you. This is the best conference in college basketball. If we're talking about opportunity for this to become really interesting, this is possibly the most boring conference in college basketball. I agree with you there. I want to ask you. I know we've given our picks, and I just want to ask you one more thing before we go into the final one, real quick, and that be the Big East, which I feel like is the shortest. The shortest one. There's only a couple of teams that I think that can really win that one, but there was a lot of discourse today because obviously the Big Ten games started today. Cincinnati and Arizona State and Baylor and Utah already playing. All of these games were on ESPN Plus. Not a single one of them are televised today. They are showing the Pat McAfee show. They're showing NFL free agency. And like, I think it was like 4 consecutive hours of 30 for 30s on replay.
It's ridiculous.
What the fuck are we doing?
I don't know. It's so stupid. I saw that and I couldn't believe it. It's like, why are we trying to ruin the beginning of the best month of the season in sports? In my opinion, I think the NCAA tournament is the best sporting event in all of American sports. Now you can agree or disagree with that, but that's just my opinion. And I understand that not a lot of people want to watch Arizona State versus Baylor on a typical day. But this is not a typical day. This is the start of Power Four conference tournament season. So, I was tuned in. I have a little VC box, is what it's called. It's a jailbreak
Yeah.
thing. I get to watch everything on. So I was able to tune into the games, but for the mass public, that's not really how it's going to work, and it's unfortunate. But yeah, it's really frustrating, and it feels like they're trying to. ESPN wants to prop up college basketball, and they want to promote it as much as possible, but still, they stifle it in some ways. Who fucking cares about 30 for 30s right now? I understand pre agency's going on, and there were a lot of big signings yesterday, but that doesn't matter in my opinion right now. It's you can save that for before the games start, or when you have a lull in the action a little bit.
Can I just say it now? Are there people actually out there tuning into NFL free agency? Like that is the epitome of like that's the television version of like this could have been an email. Like I'm just
Yes.
waiting for Adam Schefter to tell me who's going where. I'm not sitting down watching it. I'm not sitting here watching a ticker go across my screen and being like, Geno Smith to the Jets. Thank God I've been waiting 4 days for that one.
Yeah, I get
Bro,
it on Twitter. That's it.
put basketball on TV, bro. What are we talking about?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Now at the Big East, um, I mean,
I
people are gonna sleep on Villanova a little bit. To be honest, I mean, God, this conference is fucking garbage.
It's bad.
It's terrible.
Like you got DePaul as a 6 seed.
That's embarrassing. I mean, Chris Holtman's not a horrible coach. They're decent,
No?
but still, the 6 seed, Jesus. Um, St. John's doesn't matter who they play. They're gonna make the semis. Creighton and Seton Hall could be an interesting game to watch. I think Seton Hall is going to win. UConn against whoever they play. Villanova against whoever they play. I think Villanova UConn could be a really fun game.
Yeah.
I think St. John's is probably going to walk to the finals, and also this is going to be in New York City, Madison Square Garden, so they have a crowd advantage. Yeah, I'll have St. John's in the final. I'll pick UConn to beat Villanova, even though I do think that could be a really good game. I just think Villanova needs another year under Kevin Willard to really get some momentum going, but it's been a solid first season. That second matchup, or it's the rubber match between St. John's and UConn. St. John's was absolutely horrible in the second matchup against UConn. Literally,
24 consecutive misses to end the game is
it
nuts.
was the college basketball version of the Houston Rockets in Game 7 against the Warriors in 2018. That's what it felt like to me. That's a tough one to pick. I'm going to take St. John's because they are at home. I like Dan Hurley as a coach, but I do think Rick Pitino ultimately is a better coach than he is. St. John's, I mean, they've underachieved a little bit relative to their expectations, but their roster is loaded. It is absolutely loaded. So I'm going to pick St. John's to get their revenge on UConn in a really good game in the Garden. And there is no dark horse. That's not going to happen. I'll just tell you that right now.
I'll tell you right now, my dark horse pick is the vibes pick. Like there's gonna be nothing behind it. I'm right there with you though. We're here on the same one here. I'm taking St. John's in this one. It's one where I feel like Rick Pitino one does not take losing well.
No.
Two, he doesn't take getting embarrassed well either. And something about this St. John's team really reminds me of that 2012 Louisville basketball team in terms of like when they were like they seemed like they found it in the middle in mid-season Big East play, and then towards the end they just kind of like fell flat. The offense was horrible. It was one of those where like it's a typical Rick Pitino team where your offense isn't great, but your defense is good enough to keep you in games. And they had a couple bad losses towards the end of the season, but at the end of the day, you're coaching against Rick Pitino in tournament play. Whether that's in the NCAA tournament, that's a conference tournament. He's always going to have the edge. He's always going to have you more prepared. Now, it is going to go up against Dan Hurley, who is, like I said, probably the best coach in our generation right now. I think that St. John's gets their get back in this one. They share the season series 1-1 right now. I think that Rick Pitino gets the edge over him. I think UConn inevitably does better in the NCAA tournament, but I think that St. John's takes the Big East. My dark horse, my Vibes dark horse in this conference.
Georgetown.
God no. They did beat Kentucky, but I'm not big on them. I'm taking Kim English and the boys.
Oh,
Kim English with no job anymore. Already got told that he's not the coach next year. Fuck it. He's gonna go out there and win this tournament for vibes only. He's gonna say, you know what? If I'm not coaching here, I'm gonna coach somewhere better next season. I'm gonna go win the Big East and then tell you to fuck off and I'm gonna leave. Providence, one, shouldn't have lost to twice to UConn. UConn got lucky as hell in overtime. Braylon Mullins just went absolutely bonkers in overtime against Providence. They should have lost that game. This is not a bad team. Kim is not he's not a good coach. I'm just gonna say that right now. Kim English is not a great coach. But I like the vibes. He's got something to play for. He's got a chip on his shoulder.
book it.
It's happening. I don't even know what the odds on that are. It's probably horrible.
Yeah, plus 5,000. We'll see.
Well, you got anything else you want to touch on the college basketball landscape before you got here, Will?
No, I'm just so excited to sit down and watch these games for the week and then get ready for the madness starting next week. So it's the best time of the year. I'm loving it. Go Cards, and we'll see you all soon.
Go Cards.